speaking of the New Orleans Saints, want to go back to them a little bit here because early this morning it was announced that the Saints have traded a 2026 seventh-round pick to the New England Patriots for defensive tackle Davon Godchaux. LSU fans in the area remember Davon Godchaux. He was here at LSU for a number of years. He came in, he started at defensive tackle as a freshman. He played multiple positions along the defensive line. He's been in the NFL for 8 years. Look, he's had a little bit of an up and down NFL career. I mean, the numbers don't exactly jump off the page at you, but he's been solid nonetheless. I mean, his best year was back in 2019. He had 75 total tackles, 6 tackles for a loss, and 2 sacks. That was his best year. Across his 8-year NFL career, 429 tackles, 20 tackles for a loss, 5.5 sacks on the interior of the defensive line. So looking at those numbers, you might say, okay, well, why did the Saints make this trade? He's, an average NFL player. I like this move for the Saints, and I think it can impact their defensive line in a big way. We've talked about it a number of times. Bryan Bresee has shown flashes of being a really good player. Can he put it all together? You need something on the other side of Bresee in the middle of this defense to help free him up a little bit. This gives you that. Signing Davon Godchaux gives you a veteran defensive tackle in the middle of your defense that you can put next to Bryan Bresee. Also, Bresee's still a young player. He just finished his second year in the NFL. He's a guy that's still kind of figuring it out because while he played at Clemson for a number of years, he was injured. I mean, his number of games at Clemson actually wasn't that many. He's still learning. He's still developing. A guy who has been there, done that. He's an 8-year pro in the NFL. He can help Bryan Bresee learn along the way, almost be a mentor to the young player. It's also a step up from what you had. If nothing else, it gives you an extra body. Colin Saunders has been okay, but you had Colin Saunders, Nathan Shepard, and Bryan Bresee. It's really all you had. You were very, very thin at defensive line. I mean, remember, there were talks of, hey, can you move Carl Granderson to the inside? But, I mean, with the amount of pass rushers you have or lack thereof, Granderson kind of has to stay on the outside. I really like this move because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether he had 5.5 sacks in his career or 12 sacks in his career. Look, he's a guy that's been relatively healthy. So he has played in all 17 games 3 years in a row for the New England Patriots. 2022, 2023, 2024. In 21, he played in 16 out of the 17 games. So he's a guy that's been relatively healthy. The last time he did not play a full season was with Miami back in 2020. He only played in 5 games due to injury. But, again, I mentioned it, essentially 4 straight seasons with the New England Patriots. He's only missed 1 game in those 4 years. Also, you gave up a 7th-round pick in 2026 to get Davon Godchaux. So again, while the numbers may not jump off, while you may say, man, we needed something more in free agency, at the end of the day, you signed a veteran defensive tackle that can come in and be an immediate starter for you in exchange for a 7th-round pick. Take away the name, take away the numbers, take away whatever. If you bring that to the table for any NFL team, they're probably going to take that deal. Especially a team like the New Orleans Saints who, well, frankly, need all the help they can get. Now that you've got your defensive line on the interior figured out at least a little bit, you're obviously going to try to add another piece or two. But essentially, the front line guys in that rotation is pretty much figured out. Like it or not, that's probably what it's going to be for the New Orleans Saints. What about the edge? Because that's definitely a position that the Saints need to address. It's a position that multiple people have reported that the Saints may target that in the first round. And I know what you're saying. Oh, well, Marcus Davenport, Peyton Turner, you've had so many misses on this position in the first round. I get it, but at the end of the day, a need's a need. You just haven't drafted well. You still drafted players in positions of need. You just drafted the wrong players. You have an entirely new coaching staff. How much are they going to help Mickey Loomis with this draft process? There's also a guy out there that you could maybe re-sign. What do you do with a guy like Chase Young? Look, he's going to command attention from pretty much everywhere. There's rumors that the Baltimore Ravens are targeting him. The problem I have with re-signing Chase Young is not that Chase Young wasn't good last year, because what was your main concern when you signed Chase Young? Right after you got him, it was reported that he had a neck injury, he was going to miss camp, and everyone freaked out. Chase Young played in all 17 games last season. He had 31 tackles, 8 tackles for a loss, 5.5 sacks on the edge. I like Chase Young. I thought he was a fine player for you. You know the talent's there. You've seen it. But Chase Young is going to want a long-term deal. If you're the Saints, are you willing to give Chase Young a long-term deal? Should be the bigger question. I'm going to say no. Like, I like Young, but he's probably going to command a lot of money just because not just fans here in New Orleans, all across the league wanted to see if Chase Young could finish a season fully healthy. He did that. He had 5.5 sacks on the edge. His numbers weren't eye-popping, but the main thing you wanted to see, you saw, was the health of Chase Young. He looked good. He flashed for you at times in some pretty big moments. Chase Young is probably going to garner a little bit more attention and a little bit more money than you're wanting to spend on a player like Chase Young. Because there's a lot of big name guys out there. Matthew Judon is a veteran. I mean, he's up there in age, but he's a super productive player in the NFL. I get that he is linked to the 49ers, but as of this moment, Joey Bosa is still technically out there. Now, a lot of teams are going to be after Joey Bosa. How much are you willing to pay for him? The Dolphins are interested. Obviously, the mutual interest between him and the San Francisco 49ers. He's expressed the desire to play with his brother. I ultimately think that's where he's going to go. But look, if you look at the numbers of Joey Bosa, for the most part, they're there. The last couple of years, it's not that he's been bad. He just hasn't been in the lineup. He signed a big contract after 2021. Since then, he has played in 19 games over a 3-year period, and he has 15 sacks in 3 seasons. Again, in 19 games. So in 19 games, he has 15 sacks. He's actually been pretty productive. He just hasn't been able to stay on the field. But before those injuries caught him, here's what he did. From 2016 to 2021, 10.5 sacks, 12.5 sacks, 5.5 in a year he only played in 7 games, 11.5, 7.5, 10.5. So in his career, he has played in double-digit games 6 times in his 9-year career. He has 10 sacks or more in 5 of those 6 years. When he's on the field, he's a productive player, and he's still only 29 years old. The problem is, if you're not willing to pay a player like Chase Young that much money, do you really want to pay Joey Bosa? Because at this point in their career, I don't know how much difference there is between the two guys. I like Joey Bosa. He's been a lot more proven of a guy, but Chase Young's younger. He's coming off of a season where he played in all 17 games. You can't say that for a guy like Joey Bosa. So while Bosa's a big name, any concern you have with Chase Young, you pretty much got to double it with Joey Bosa. 1, he's older. 2, he's going to command a lot more money than Chase Young. And 3, he hadn't been as healthy as Chase Young in recent years. Up until last year, I would have said, yeah, absolutely. It's just been a bit of bad luck. But Chase Young proved he could stay on the field. Joey Bosa hasn't been able to stay on the field for 3 seasons now. He's missed more games than he's played over that span. So I like Joey Bosa. That might be a little much for me. Price range-wise, looking at what else the Saints need, looking at his injury history over the last 3 years, I like Bosa. You certainly call him, kind of see interest. If he would do that 1-year prove-it deal, I don't think he would, but there's always a chance. So call him, kick the tires on it for sure, but I don't know if that's a realistic option. So if you move on from Chase Young, you don't sign Joey Bosa in free agency. What do you do on the perimeter? Because again, you got the interior figured out with the signing of Davon Godchaux. If you're at 9 overall and you're not absolutely in love with Will Johnson, like we talked about earlier, and you don't sign a corner round 1, there's a chance you could go edge rusher. And again, I get it. I know Saints fans are like, hey, we've been bitten by edge rusher enough. I understand that. But you've also reached on a lot of guys. I don't think anybody was chomping at the bits to sign Marcus Davenport and Peyton Turner in the first round when you did that. You reached on those guys. 2 guys that could potentially be there when you're drafting 9 overall. actually both come from the Georgia Bulldogs. We know how those players have fared in the NFL on the defensive side of things. Ask the Philadelphia Eagles. The first name I want to mention is Mykel Williams. 3 years at Georgia, 23.5 tackles, 14 sacks, very productive. Scouts love this guy. I mean, he is projected to be a lock in the first round. The other guy is a teammate of Williams, again at Georgia, Jalen Walker. 3 years at Georgia, 19 tackles for a loss, 12.5 sacks. So both very productive players. They could come in. They could be day one starters for you on the edge. Because I'm good with bringing, like Carl Granderson, having him on one side. Carl Granderson's not your number one pass rusher, though. Carl Granderson's job will be take a little bit of pressure off the guy on the other side because you have a solid quality pass rusher. You need a stud on the other side of Granderson in order for him to be fully effective, in my opinion. Mykel Williams could come in, potentially be that guy. Jalen Walker could potentially come in and be that guy. If you do that, let's say it is Mykel Williams. You would have a D-line of 2 veterans and 2 really young players. Your veterans being Davon Godchaux and Carl Granderson. And then your young guys, Bryan Bresee, who's entering his 3rd year in the NFL, and he's shown some flashes. The consistency just needs to be there a little bit more. And Mykel Williams, who was a really good player on a really good defense, was coached by Kirby Smart, who in the college game, best in the business on that side of the ball. We know that. Or Jalen Walker, also at Georgia, also under Kirby Smart. I'm not saying that's what they're going to do in the first round, but you could do a lot worse, especially if you don't want to re-sign a guy like Chase Young.
Hey, it's Hunt. Thanks for watching Hunt on Saints. Before you leave, help us out a little bit. Hit that like button, leave your comments in the section below, and hit that subscribe button so you get all our content right here from Hunt on Saints. We'll see you next time.